Today with the Golden Slipper Stakes, a brilliant win by Flying Spur. Hard luck for Jim Cassidy, disqualified for 6 months on Friday. Best of luck imaginable for Glenn Boss. Got the ride Friday night, took advantage of it and won. He's a special guest today with Keith Hillier. We're hoping Max comes. We are in his home city, and the first time you've arrived, Keith, he hasn't shown.
Yes. But I tell you, he didn't miss a great day of racing yesterday. And what a race, Bruce. The slipper that had it all, the most exciting in 38 years. Less than 24 hours before the race, the winner was being trained by a trainer who was facing a 4-month suspension and being ridden by a jockey with a 6 months disqualification. Glenn Boss got the luckiest of rides.
Glenn, congratulations. It must have been the great day in Australian racing for you.
Oh, there's just nothing that can sort of top that, you know. It's just such a great feeling.
You're a long way from your start in racing on the sand tracks at Gympie, Glenn.
Yeah, we started in northwest Queensland in a place called Gympie on the sand, and yeah, it is a long way to at Rose Hill. You know,
and also because, Glenn, you were very badly injured, not very long ago at Queanbeyan. Well, that was only February, and it looked as though you might miss the whole of the autumn carnival at that stage.
Yeah, I looked at 3 months at one stage. So I snapped my wrist, and fortunately enough, I was put on to a very good doctor, Dr. Perko, in North Sydney, and he put a pin in it, and he said he'd get me back in 4 weeks, and it was nearly 4 weeks to the day that he got me back riding.
Did you see Glenn with his fiancée after the race? They've been together for 7.5 years, and he still hasn't set a date, you know.
Oh, perhaps today, 7.5 years. How long have you been engaged for?
We've been engaged for, I think it's about 3 or 4 years now, and...
Is there a money problem, Glenn?
No, it's just... no, we're very much in love, but we just sort of haven't really set a date yet, but it won't be far away.
You want to sit on national television this morning?
Well, I'd have to probably speak to her about that. But,
you'd have to look at the racing calendar, Glenn, and work out. But you're also expecting your first child in a couple of months?
Yes, we've got a little boy coming in 2 months' time, so everything's just fabulous.
Now, Jim Cassidy, he's a good mate of yours?
Well, Jim and I, yeah, we get on, but I wouldn't say we're fabulous mates, but we get on, we're acquaintances, yeah.
Do you feel for him?
Well, yeah, you have to. I mean, God, it's just... I don't know how he would feel now, but I suppose I know how I feel, but... yeah, you'd have to feel something.
OK, we'll talk about a little bit more about the tape situation later. Let's go to the Golden Slipper. Glenn's on Flying Spur, drawn barrier 1.
And second last into the straight.
In the Golden Slipper Stakes. Line's good, off and running in the slipper, and Strategic and our Maze K on the extreme outside are away brilliantly over Rustic Lady. Millrich is scooting through and is going to lead. Shaded showing plenty of early dash, followed by Zephyrs and then Tuscany Flyer. Kidman's Cove, Zedrich on the fence in a pretty handy spot. Rivada's behind a big bunch of leaders in the early stages. Further back, Exclusive Halo. Strategic now goes back to be midfield, coming around the first turn, followed by Flying Spur. At the head of the others, Rustic Lady, then Octagonal Principality, and last of all is Furacao. 700 out Shaded, got to the lead over our Maze K. A length away, Daney Boy. Zephyrs off the track. Millrich on the fence, followed by Tuscany Flyer. Then Kidman's Cove. Rivada's in the middle of the pack as they come around the turn. Zedrich on the fence with nowhere to go, followed by Exclusive Halo. And Strategic is carted at least 8 wide on the turn into the straight. Our Maze K cantered to the lead, straightening up. Our Maze K is clear by more than a length to Millrich, who's going after him. Zedrich is bullocking into the clear, followed by Flying Spur and Kidman's Cove. Our Maze K clear with 100 to go. Millrich, the filly, is coming after him quickly and getting between them. Flying Spur, and look at Octagonal jumping out of the ground. Flying Spur hit the front. Flying Spur wins the slipper. Flying Spur for Glenn Boss over Octagonal, which jumped out of the ground.
Speaking of jumping out of the ground, I thought you were going to jump out of the saddle about a stride before the line, Glenn.
No, it's just unbelievable. Emotions just run high, and I hope every jockey that I know gets to feel that, you know.
Tell us about this now. Flying Spur, you said a moment ago he wouldn't take the runs earlier in the straight. Here?
Yeah, Lee said he's got a bit of a mind of his own. He said before the race, he said he either run last or he'll blow this field away, and he just needed a bit of coaxing to get through the gap, but once he found the run...
14s to 25s on the day, so it was a bookie slipper, and Octagonal's run was sensational.
Well, I thought there were 3 fantastic runs outside of the winner, Octagonal, Strategic and our Maze K. They were brilliant. And what might come out of this slipper that I don't think has in recent years, we might see 3 or 4 horses that go on to be top-class older horses.
Yeah, sure. Look, the slipper, 1,200 metres, $2 million. The Melbourne Cup, 3,200 metres, $2 million. Yesterday, Strategic ran the Melbourne Cup distance. Never on the track, was it?
A bit like Michael Kinane on Vintage Cup. I mean, it wasn't Beedman's fault because he'd drawn a bad barrier, sure, and he was stuck out there. You talked about the emotion as you hit the line. What about the emotion after the race? I mean, I don't think I've seen a jockey... In fact, he reminded me of a Greggy Hall.
Greg Hall, exactly.
I'd hate to call anyone a Greg Hall double. I'm sorry, Glenn, but did you agree, Keith?
Absolutely, what jubilation. You tell us about that, Glenn. It must have been so magic.
Yeah, well, you just float. You don't remember a lot of it, actually. You just seem to float.
What are you doing here?
Oh,
I mean, horse kissing?
Oh, well, you just get so wrapped up in it all, and I know how the Big G feels now.
Big G, Big Greg.
What about the crowd reception? I mean, you're on a 25-to-1 winner. Very few of us backed it, and they're really cheering for you.
Yeah, well, there was a heap of blokes on the fence there who were cheering out and really got behind me, so it just adds to the excitement.
And the other extraordinary thing was this horse wasn't going to run in the slipper 10 days ago, and I think Lee Friedman thought, as he looked at Strategic, struggled to beat Zedrich, and he looked at Milrich getting beaten, he changed his mind very late. Max, welcome. We put it on early because we thought we might miss you. How are you? We've just gone through all the drama of the slipper. It was a day like no other.
Yeah, a little bit slow out of the barrier this morning I was, but nevertheless I'll make up for lost ground. Yeah, it was an interesting slipper. I don't think I've ever seen a slipper that has had so many luck factors tied up with it. But nevertheless, congratulations to Glenn for taking advantage of it. It was one of the fine slipper rides. It was the ride that won the slipper.
Let's go on to the BMW.
We must mention Lee Friedman, 3 in a row.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, yeah, historic performance. What an effort. Bitmasque, Dan Zero, and this one, who I think might be the best of all of them, though Bitmasque was pretty outstanding. The BMW. We'll go to the race. Jern looked to have his chance for sure yesterday. In fact, David Hayes said, Max, after the race, this is the first time he's been slightly disappointed. Stony Bay leading. It really clouds and makes the Derby picture even more interesting now, because with Dane Winder coming fresh, Turadoo running well again yesterday, it's I think, beefed up the Derby, don't you?
It makes the Derby a very interesting race. Stony Bay had the weight for age event yesterday put on for him, allowed to make his own play in front of 3-year-old. Certainly when Jern looms up in a couple of seconds, it does look like he's got Stony Bay, but certainly you just wonder whether, what do you think, Glenn, is Jern getting to the line here, or is Stony Bay just proving too courageous?
Well, my honest opinion is that Jern's got to just learn to relax in his races. You just can't pull over 1.5 miles and get to the line. It's just the simple fact of it.
But what about that trait of him not going past the horse near the post? It's a punter's horror, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, he's learning to run second, which is not good.
How do we assess that form? I remember 3-year-olds at this time of the year seem to have, the good ones have the wood on older horses. We saw Myocard clean up, I think, Bone Crush and Waverley Star. We've seen it over the years. How do we assess that form with Dane Win, though? I mean, who runs favourite in the Derby next week, do you think, at this stage?
Dane Win.
Dane Win, do you?
Yeah, no doubt.
Sure.
Stony
Okay.
Bay is good. Dane Win is better.
The figures of Stony Bay weren't all that flash. Ivory's Irish came home much quicker than Stony Bay, yet Stony Bay has still got that vital ingredient, the Smith bone and muscle.
You got a Derby ride, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm riding Persian Fly in the Derby, another one of Gay Waterhouse.
Chance?
If he gets luck in running, and he can be right in the race.
Look, Northwood Plume, we won't show her win yesterday because I want to talk about the jockey tapes, but no chance she'd run in the Derby? She'd be pretty hard to beat, wouldn't she?
She would be hard to beat. She's the
Yes,
best filly.
her figures yesterday were comparable with the others. She's an outstanding filly and definitely would be a chance in the
I think the other thing, the BMW's lost ground is a great race. I mean, there was very little promotion surrounding it yesterday. Once upon a time, it was challenging the Golden Slipper on the same day. It was a pretty poor field, and really, it was challenging the Cox Plate 5 years ago. It's nowhere near it at the moment. I don't think that's a harsh comment.
I think that's fair.
No, I think that perhaps you're being a little bit harsh on the strength of yesterday's field. A couple of weeks ago, we were saying what a super horse Jern was.
Well, Max, I saw the new...
Stony Bay. Perhaps Stony Bay might show that we're underrating him a shade.
Can I make the point? I watched one of the newses last night, and they didn't even replay the BMW on a news service in Sydney. That's how important the race was to Sydney people. The racing tapes. Now, Glenn, you were called to the inquiry on Friday?
Yeah, I was called to the AJC in Stewart's room to assist in their inquiries, and...
Where were we at, Max? We've got to... what's going to happen here?
Well, as you probably know, the jockeys' tapes eventuate from some tape recordings that the Sydney Morning Herald have received of jockeys in conversation with an alleged drug dealer. I've seen excerpts of the tapes. I wonder whether the AJC stewards have seen excerpts of the tapes. A committeeman told me yesterday that they haven't. How can you conduct an inquiry if you haven't seen the tapes?
We don't have much time, but can we run through... Jim Cassidy, disqualified for 6 months. What's his future?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Cassidy is at the AJC now or in the very near future. That's this morning.
The inquiry is continuing this morning.
Now, the 3 jockeys that were called up, do you have to go again? There were Kevin Moses, yourself, Glenn, and Larry Cassidy?
Yeah, I don't think we have to appear again. We just went there and helped with the assistance of the inquiry. Well, I really don't know much more than what people read in the papers themselves. So.
I'd put this to you. There might have been a lot of jockeys mentioned. There might be a lot of jockeys questioned, but there's a hell of a lot of jockeys not involved.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Glenn.
No,
congratulations. Keith, great to see you in Sydney. And Max, we'll catch you both next week with the Doncaster.
Look forward to it, Bruce.
We'll take a break. Back with more after this.
We think it's a great concept, and the Super League is here to stay.
That the Super League is the way to go for Ricky Stewart and Canberra Raiders.
Through the years, we've had to weather plenty of storms, and I guess at the end of the day, this is one.